Everybody, back again here with another fresh installment coming to you live, game number three of the World Championships. So far in game one, we've had Liren win game number one. Game number two ended in a relatively quiet Italian draw. And today, with game number three, Gukesh again has the. Can Ding Liren then repeat a win with black? Will it be a safe draw? Or will Gukesh strike back? Let's see what happens. In this game then, 1d4, the Queen's Pawn opening. So, bit of trivia and history. The very first World Championship match um, between Zukertort and Steinitz started with 1d4 as well. But in that game, Steinitz responded 1d5. Here, Ding goes knight to f6. We have knight to f3. We have d5, c4, and e6. So we're in the classic Queen's Gambit declined structures. C takes d, e takes d, and knight c3. C6 by Ding then, and queen to c2. Very trendy nowadays. Queen to c2, perhaps it's just to support a push in the center eventually, and just making more space for the queen, right? So thereafter we have g6. Ding's intention is then to go bishop f5 in these structures, but obviously bishop f5 immediately is not possible as the queen would just capture. So g6 serves a multi-purpose move of going bishop to f5 as well as developing this bishop to g7. All right, we have h3, and this game up to this point was uh, played between Kramnik and Nepo last year, as well as Erigaisi and Kramnik. So you can see the influence here that it is highly likely that Guki uh, had seen this game and studied this position before with his contemporary. Um, And it's worth noting that this H3 structure produced any wins for white in the past. Only been draws and losses. So black has been standing superior from this position from move 7. So as the game continues then, queen to b3, queen to b6, the most natural response. Thing asking Gukesh, do you want to trade queens here? Gukesh says not yet, and Gukesh goes g4. The G is for Gukesh, yeah, G file domination. And this move is crucial now, as after g4, Ding says, okay, let's trade queens, a takes b, and bishop c2. So, still very much in theory. It is worth noting here that in this position, Gukesh hardly spent any time. He's still very much in prep. Like on move 7, he had only spent 4 minutes. And Ding's already been burning quite a lot of time. In fact, time becomes a very crucial aspect in this match as we progress. After bishop takes c2, we then have bishop to f4. So now Gukesh is telling Ding, all right, fine. You can take my b3 pawn, but it doesn't do that much for you. In fact, after, let's say, takes on b3, that's not a problem. You just go knight to d2, and your bishop is kind of trapped, right? Because now you go bishop c4, not a problem, you just capture. And there you have doubled c pawns, e3 is coming, and you never try and defend this pawn like that. Why not? So, because what happens is just bishop to g2, right? Or you could even go knight takes on b5, c takes bishop g2, and guess what? Your rook is trapped, it cannot move anywhere. You are bound to lose the rook. So it's very standard in these Queen's Gambit structures to let the c pawn be if you've accepted it, if you've taken there, right? Don't try too much to defend it, because especially if g3 has been played after knight takes on b5 and c takes, bishop g2 tends to be an annoyance. Of course, unless you've developed your knight already, or you've played maybe a6, a5, and you could slide the rook down or on the 8th rank. Other than that, do not opt for it. So let's just delete this variation. After bishop f4, Ding says, nope, I'm not going for that. I'm going h5 and countering, right? And Ding finds very resourceful moves here. Very sharp tactical play coming. So after h5, Gukesh goes rook to g1. So just to show that, Gukesh played a bishop to c1, for instance, or rook to c1. Not the problem. You're just capturing because you're getting this in exchange. And if you take here, it's just worse, right? not there. Yeah. But the reason behind the rook to g1 is to stop this and that, and then you just lose the rook, right? So if we go back then, delete that variation, we have h5, rook to g1, h takes g, h takes g, and here knight b to d7. Thing just developing, and then we have knight to d2. So we have a bit of an issue here. We need to discuss this quickly. This bishop needs some breathing room. It cannot take there obviously now because the knight's guarding. It doesn't have d3 because e takes. It doesn't have uh, f4, e4. Let's say yeah, bishop to e4. What happens? You just go f3, right? And then it's big trouble. Takes, and you can safely resign there, right? All right. So after knight to d2, we have rook to g8, and rook g8 purpose is to then go h5, g5 to not just to attack this bishop, but also to make space for the bishop to drop back, either then to h7 or g6, most probably g6, right? So instead of that, Gukesh says, no, I'm not letting you get g5 in here. I'm going g5. Ding says not a problem. Now Ding's standing slightly better here, right? After knight to h5, attacking on f4, the bishop's gonna have to drop back, which it does to h2. And after h2, rook back to h8 then, right? Uh, Trying to set up possible discoveries, but the knight would just have to go back to g7, as it cannot really go to f4. You just capture. Obviously, g3 doesn't work because you can capture with the bishop as well, not with the pawn, because then that could happen. So rook to g8, we have f3. After f3, now f3 just really constricting this bishop, and there is some problems now. At least not at the moment, but it's building up and things got to be accurate. So the goal is here to go knight g7. If we're playing top move, bishop to g3 and bishop to e7. This move is really important and it puts pressure back on here because now if, let's say, rook c1, seemingly as if bishop trap, not a problem. You go bishop to f5, and if then e4, not a problem. You go back bishop to e6, or you could even go bishop captures on g5, but the top move would be bishop to e6, and then the game just continues. Because now if you take black smiling, no stress anymore, right? The bishop's got its space. Castling ideas are possible now. Getting the rooks in the h file is nice. And white doesn't have any entry points to really attack, right? To do much. Perhaps not castling immediately as it's an open file here. You'd be castling yourself into trouble. Let's say, for example, okay, f4. This would not be too good right now. Because f5 you're losing that. There's a lot of options, even knight takes d5. You see that? And then you just go, if you go there, well, you are in some trouble, right? Okay, so let's go back then to the initial position. After bishop to d3, we have rook to h5, and this was the first mistake made by Ding. It's funny on the ChessBiz India stream, all the fans were like clapping hands and going, really, they were ecstatic for about this mistake because now the game is changing its complexion, and Gukesh finds the important move, e4 here. Now the bishop's totally locked out, right? And now Ding captures as how it did, which is also difficult because it's predict the engine suggesting a knight to e6 and just perhaps going after this. Um, this pawn here on d4, not on d5, because now I have 96, rook c1, knight takes on d4. Yes, it is slightly better, but if bishop f2, you get bishop c5, right? And if if bishop took, this would be black would prefer this position as to what had actually happened, because if takes there, things arguing, okay, I'll take here, you take there, not the problem. I've got this position where I'm attacking your rook on c1 as well as your pawn on g5. So this would be beating, arguing, saying, no, I've got enough compensation. Yeah, you can even start with d4, kick the knight away more. If here takes, not a problem. Wow, the engine's suggesting castling in this position. It's really showing how it's intent to attack here. Okay, knight to c2. Let's say a slow moves played, maybe b3. You're getting these a5 thrusts, right? Eventually. So yeah. And then or even if you just want to bail take the pawn and then the game continues. which most likely would have been the more human approach. So after e4, we have d takes e, f takes on e, and now we have this knight e6, the knight coming back from the room there on g7. So thereafter, Guki finds the precise move of um, rook to c1. Then we have knight takes on d4, bishop to f2, but bishop to g7 is played. So a more slightly passive route was taken here. Bishop to g7 instead of going this bishop c5 as was discussed earlier. Bishop to g7 then, and knight to e2. And here's where this move was the only move that holds or that gives Gukesh advantage. And the reason why knight e2 is so powerful then is because this bishop doesn't have anywhere to go now, right? And the knight's now attacking. White's knight is attacking black's knight, which is the only piece defending the bishop on c2. So thereafter, Ding says, fine, you can take my bishop, but I'm gonna argue and say I'm getting some pawns in exchange. So the engine even is evaluating as 1 plus 1.4, which objectively, yes, white is better, but from a human standpoint, this is much harder to prove, right? But it's simpler to play for white. Definitely, there's no dispute about that. So rook takes on c2, knight takes on b on d2, and king captures on d2. Um, Rook takes on d2 is also okay, but not as strong because you get this 95 idea, and you're really starting to ask some questions at, to White's pieces. So uh, Guki goes king to d2, gets his king out, and developing ever so slightly because it is the end game. It's fine, the king can come out. Knight to e5, then still, and then now knight to d4. We have rook to d8, keeping a pawn here on the king and the knight, so the king had to slide out of the way, which the king does. And in this position, Ding was severely under time pressure. Remember, they have to reach move 14 to get an increment. So on move 27, they're still 13 moves away. Ding had less than, he had about 11 minutes here. Like he had 11 minutes to make 11 moves. So after rook h2, um, bishop to g2, and it's important here after a6 not to go moves like knight to not to knight f3. My apologies. If we go back a move in this position, not to go knight f, no, not to go knight f3. Oh no, pressing the wrong buttons here. But there were some tactics in this position, right? After rook d8 and king slides away. Um, Rook to h2, bishop to g2, a6, and b3, which is a very classy move. And then rook to d7. Now, here, Ding is already in immense pressure. Um, you'll see that he tries to slide his king back and forth, which he does, and is actually one of the top moves. But he's under so much pressure, his pieces are constrained, struggling to develop, get it out. And b3 is just such a classy move in that it stops all ideas of creating more thrusts in space. The knight can't enter, right? So just back to e8 then, and in this position, Ding has to still make 9 moves, and he had about under 2 minutes. So it's a lot of moves to make in 2 minutes. Basically 10 moves in 2 minutes. So now bishop to g3, Gukesh just finding all the accurate moves, and now rook to h5. After rook to h5, then we have knight to f3. And here, Ding says, fine, I'll capture there. King captures. It's okay to go bishop takes here, not as great because you break out that way. And yeah, thereafter you have this and that, and the game goes on. But then the advantage is suddenly not as strong, it's just +1. But there's so many factors, especially the time factor, that's really hurting Ding in this position, right? And added to its complexity. So king takes f3. We have bishop to d4, trying to generate some ideas, maybe attacking the rook here and keeping more material on. But Gukesh is not the problem. I'll just go rook h1, and now material is bound to fall because the rook on h5 has got nowhere to go. So rook takes on g5, and in this position already, thing was under a minute, um, down to the last seconds, and he still had to make 5 moves in this position. And it's not too long after that that after rook to g5, bishop to h3, and the rook is under attack here. But the main thing behind rook to bishop to h3 is that wherever this rook goes now, we go to c7, well, you're just losing a piece there, as this rook is guarding the bishop on b4. If you go to d8, for instance, it's just bishop to h4, both rooks are attacked by the bishop, and whichever rook you move, you are losing another one, right? So Ding went f5, but after this, bishop to f4, and Ding ran out of time. But even in this position, the winning move here is so beautiful. It's bishop to f5, because if rook takes, because this rook is now under attack, and here, and this one, right? So whatever white black does here, there's not much to do, because if bishop takes on f5 and takes on h1, for instance, you first start with the check, you capture, and then you pick up the rook on h1. And after this, you can see black is just down a clean rook. This is easily winning for white. So yeah, guys, there we have it. Gukesh striking back, showing his strength and his class and his power. Really dominating performance. Played in his prep, hardly spent time out of the opening. And these are the important things in these World Championships, the level of preparation, right? And Gukesh is just showing sublime um, disposition. So tomorrow is a rest day, and they'll be back on round four on the 29th. So we'll see how it goes from there. The scores are equal. Everything is in the balance. We have a fight on our hands, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you again soon for the next video. Take care.